gathering to address the scourge of money laundering and terrorism financing that bleeds billions from our continent annually. Now, with me today to discuss the conference's potential impact, our Director of the Institute for Combating Illicit Financial Flows, Dr. Baoki Ditau, and Executive Director of the Civic Advisory Hub, Mr. Yona Wanjala. Gentlemen, welcome to the Daybreak and good morning.
Good morning. Very much. Happy to be here.
Thank you so much. Maybe we can just start with the President's opening address, which highlighted the scale of illicit financial flows here in Africa. Now, from your perspective as an expert in this field, Dr. Ditau, why is the conference focused on civil society and why is it that that area or that sector is significant this time around?
Well, it's very significant because if one looks at the way illicit financial flows leave the continent or even countries, they go through NPOs. So it was very cogent and very appropriate of the President to highlight that. Yeah.
All right. What has been the status, though, in the continent of Africa? Are we experiencing a lot of gaps when it comes to financial laws taking place or being followed when it comes to CSOs? Is that the case?
Yes, in a way, because a lot of times NPOs have been, nobody followed through on NPOs. Everybody thought because the reason they exist is for the good cause, to help people, to help with the environmental crimes and anything. And everybody assumed that they're doing the good works. But then again, there have been entities that have been used either to fund terrorism. Although we may not have seen it in our countries, but we have seen instances around the world. We have seen NPOs, CSOs being used to fund terrorism around the world and also being used to do money laundering. Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. Now, maybe, Mr. Wanjala, we can talk then to the immediate and practical value that civil society organizations are expected to play really and bring to the table in the fight against money laundering, countering financial terrorism beyond just advocacy.
Thank you. I think I just need to highlight that this is a unique conference of the kind that brings together civil society and subject matter experts from different regions to bridge the knowledge gap on aspects of money laundering, terrorism financing, and illicit financial flows. This subject is little known among civil society actors, so I think there is need to create awareness. But key to it is that civil society actors are also victims or vulnerable to these vices of money laundering, terrorism financing, and illicit financial flows. So beyond the advocacy, I think key to it is them to join in the fight against these vices. Like you might have known, statistics reveal that Africa actually loses 88.6 billion. These billions are lost in form of financial crimes of illicit finances. And again, statistics reveal that the biggest share of this 88.6, which almost runs to 60%, are in what we call economic activities, trade-based laundering, misinvoicing, tax evasion. Corruption only goes for 5%. And when you scan through the procurement corruption, you feel it's almost the biggest, but no, economic activity, natural resources. Then we have the other 35%, which basically goes for criminal activities, things like human trafficking, right? Things like drug trafficking. But these affects our society. If we are not part of the fight, then we are to blame. The voice in future will ask, where were you when all this was happening? So we are happy that the civil society, more than ever, is highly interested in participating and engaging meaningfully in such discussions at policy level and at a practical level. I just want also to mention that it's a great opportunity for civil society to join hands with institutes like the Institute of Combating Illicit Financial Flow in Botswana. That means that beyond acting as loaners, as civic actors, we are now going into institutions that host academias for us to tease out on how to confront this, I should call it an enemy to Africa, that is illicit financial flow. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think right there you've highlighted some of the gaps because you were bringing about recommendations.
Yeah.
If we can go back to speaking more on the current gaps, Doc, legislation, resources, political will, what are the gaps there? Or are we finding all of these coming together, working towards a common goal? Or are there those things that we can point at and say, these are the problems that we're experiencing in these areas? And really, how can this conference help us to make commitments towards changing this or bringing improvements here?
Well, I think if one looks at where Botswana comes from, it has been a process where things were becoming much better. Botswana first got assessed, the NPO sector and everything got assessed in 2007. And then again, it happened in 2017. And throughout these assessments, we've seen that Botswana has done or has enacted over 25 laws that basically were geared to help combat this illicit financial flows, and also to make sure that NPOs themselves are compliant, and also to make sure that they comply not only to the laws of the country, but to include FATF recommendations. There's a recommendation 8, which basically targets NPOs, and it's very specific on what NPOs should do. So Botswana, and I would say there's been good political will in our country, and we see basically that Botswana has now become compliant. Prior to, I think 2 months ago, Botswana was not compliant in NPO sector. However, in the last evaluation that Botswana did in Addis, Botswana was seen to be largely compliant. So this shows that efforts are basically bearing fruits. And I would say that looking at NPOs in Botswana, one can say that they're really compliant at this moment. However, AML CFT space is an evolving space. So going forward, there may be challenges that we may have to confront and to deal with. But so far, we are good, we're largely compliant.
Right. Now, speaking of compliance and also the process that it takes to get to where we want to get, and reflecting to last year's similar conference, we had feedback from a number, or even presentations, and one of them, if I could just note one who said, we seem to be getting policies and ideas, and then when they come, we are made to accept them and implement them, not meaning that we actually do agree with them. So if we can look at that, since we're speaking of policies and laws, the legislative part and instruments thereof. What is it that we do to make sure that there is relevance and we bring these laws or policies to our context for each and every country?
Well, you're right, because most of these policies, or should I say recommendations, are prescribed by the Financial Action Task Force, which sits in Paris. But then again, with that said, it's important that we look at what the laws, or should I say these recommendations, do to our countries. Number one, they help us to combat these illicit financial flows. And then the second thing, they help our country basically to show that criminals do not launder money using our financial systems. So I think this plays a key role in that, even though one may feel that they may be imposed by an entity that comes out of Africa, but it is basically for the good cause, because it helps us to have our monies not being laundered. It helps us also to protect the finances that we make in this country. Yona just spoke about the criminal activities that happen in the economic space. So I think these recommendations actually help prevent these criminal activities. Yeah. All
right. Thank you so much, Doc. Mr. Wanjala, this being the case, then what can CSOs do to ensure that there are discussions about reforms with their governments and they're not shelved, with different political administrations, maybe, if so be the case in different countries, it might be. What really can be done to make sure that, powerful figures are implicated in investigations, to make sure that the investigations done from themselves as CSOs, what should be their first hand do?
I think that question resonates with the theme of the conference. The theme of the conference is placing civic space at the heart of anti-money laundering and countering the financing of terrorism. Why placing civic space at the heart? Across the African countries, in the number of jurisdictions, countries have been using these laws to whip the civil society actors, to whip whistleblowers, to shrink the space of operation, to disrupt the operation. And at almost a certain level, you would see glorification of authoritarianism in the name of fighting illicit financial flows. The anti-money laundering and counterterrorism regime has very good intentions of addressing the vices that we are talking about. But then it seems to have been weaponized against its intention, leading to what the Financial Action Task Force calls the unintended consequences. So such engagement are to facilitate a conversation, to reason together on how best can we enforce the regulations, the legislation, without disrupting the operation of the goodwill of civil society actors. And I think, again, civil society more than ever need to engage policymakers, need to engage regulators on this subject matter. I'm happy and glad to say here that one of the countries that has demonstrated goodwill to engage civil society meaningfully is the government of Botswana. We launched a program called NGO Regulator Connect, Aribue. Hope I've pronounced it well. Let's talk. Let's talk, let's reason together. It resonates with the biblical. Let's reason together. Even if things are getting out of the way, we can still put them back in the right space. So together, we can make a difference. Together, we can fight financial crime. Maybe what I also wanted to say is that when you look at illicit financial flows and other financial or predicate offenses, they're organized crimes. People plan, people calculate loose ends. And some of the people involved, or the majority, are politically exposed persons. They're really connected. Yes, they are connected. That even investigating such crimes becomes a very challenging element. But I should say you're blessed. Yesterday, the tone that was set by the president was that high tone. How I wish every African president can set such a tone. I think we cannot erase illicit financial flows. We cannot erase financial crimes, but we can mitigate the effect.
Sounds like the grass is greener on our side.
Yes.
It's great to hear that from you. Maybe then, Dr. Ditau, we can then speak then about the conference. We know some of its objectives were to promote cross-sectoral collaboration and also to facilitate knowledge as well as addressing emerging civic space threats, and lastly to promote stakeholder accountability. Maybe we can then speak to the impact that we are seeing now during the conference, and what do we expect to be seen as the outcome or the fruits of the conference afterwards?
Well, the conference actually presented an opportunity for NPOs. Many times we say NPOs, but then again, we're talking about entities that do a lot. We're talking about entities that basically maybe Red Cross being one of them, others being in educational space. All of them are different and they do a myriad of issues that are different. So we're blessed to have this conference in the form that it did present a multidisciplinary approach that helped us as an institute and us as a country to look at recommendation 8 and see how we can make it uniform or how we can adapt it to these entities that operate to do good works, but then again, they do it in very different spheres and in different forms.
All right, thank you so much. If we can then speak to the measurability of the conference, do we have ways we can say this conference has given us the fruits, we are seeing the fruits of the conference, or maybe we can also reflect it to the previous ones to say after that these were the recommendations and we have seen them happening or being implemented in country X and in country Y. Do we have such that we're looking at to say after the conference this will be our measure and this will be our gauge?
Yes, I mean, with Botswana, it becomes easier to say that we see progress. Like I mentioned, prior to this conference, or say 2 months before this conference, our country's NPO on recommendation 8 were not compliant. However, now we are largely compliant. And with that side, it does present opportunity to say that although we are doing good things in the country, as I mentioned earlier, AML CFT space is an evolving space. So one of the things that I think are takeaways from this conference is that we are looking at issues like automation, how we can make NPOs to automate, to have processes, make sure that they have the toolkits that they can use on their operations. And then the biggest challenge, the biggest test for all of us as a country in Botswana is that 2027, the country is going again for MER, will be evaluated again by FATF. And that is where a true measure of the pudding basically will be measured.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow, sounds interesting. We'll be looking forward to the results. Because we're going towards the end of our conversation, Mr. Wanjala, how can CSOs then remain permanent partners in the AML and CFT makeup beyond just participating in such conferences? What are your expectations going forward? What aspect of sustainability from this relationship are you expecting to build?
This is anchored on the philosophy of the African Civil Society Initiative on ML CFT.
Right.
This initiative is a collaboration between the Civic Advisory Hub and Spaces for Change, which is in West Africa. The Civic Advisory Hub is based in Uganda, but working in the whole of sub-Saharan Africa. So we intend to broaden this initiative membership, and allow me say that I think one of our immediate partner is going to be the Institute of Combating Illicit Financial Flows in Botswana. If that goes well, and we intend to have all the representation. But what beyond this, what is it? This is going to be an oversight and accountability body that is going to collaborate with the regional economic mechanisms, with the regional mechanism, with the African mechanisms, with all the institutes that have subject matter expertise in this area, to be able to improve the effectiveness of anti-money laundering and counter-terrorism financing regime in Africa. Because we need to make a contribution. It's our people to suffer. It's us to suffer because of these vices. Yesterday it was a government affair, but we believe government cannot fight it alone. The voice, the tone, the energy, the expertise of the civil society is key. So we went through several elements when it comes to illicit financial flows, and we saw the effects of vices like terrorism onto the women and combating it, how it affects women. We looked at engaging, how do we engage with the UN mechanism when it comes to counter-terrorism. We went deeper into procurement corruption and how this erodes the finances that actually would be used to support the common man, to support all the basic needs in society. So we feel that we need to deepen and broaden this subject, but key to it to make it a sustainable subject, to contribute and generate knowledge that can support policy, that can support government in fighting these vices. And I'm happy that we are teaming up with the right people.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Let me thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time this morning and the deliberation itself. We're looking forward to seeing post-conference and seeing that Africa will actually be going somewhere. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. That is Dr. Baoki Ditau, as well as Mr. Yona Wanjala. Of course, we're speaking at the just launched yesterday Africa Civil Society AML CFT Conference going on, and really our key takeaways, what we should be doing, where we're gearing as Africa, especially in the finance sector.
Agriculture remains the backbone of our rural economy. It is a